all the anti-aging stuff to kick in, so my eyes will get better. Okay, looks like we're doing okay. Oh man, that's strange. Okay, huh? All right, yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, I'm just being quiet because I know you're multitasking. So,
That's all right. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna have a slow start because the notifications are being suppressed. So if you could share this to one page, your page, or to a group or on YouTube, if you can share it, that'd be great. And
yeah,
if not, they'll find us on the replay. We've got a beautiful
yeah,
beloved sister in the house, new friend I've never met before, which is great because that's the Soulgy Styles, is to get to know our friends in the spontaneous moment, in the intuitive moment, creative moment, and Kirsty Elizabeth. But we're going to allow people some time to come in. We're going to play our intro. We'll be back in a minute and 19 seconds. How's it going, everybody? We got Kirsty Elizabeth in the house from the UK. We've got a lot of common friends. I received some messages of excitement that she was coming on. I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. I've been saying this every day because we're not going to post it for obvious reasons. David Icke is coming on. He was supposed to come on in November. He stopped doing interviews. He was exhausted, is what his son told us. But he will be on in January, and we'll put that out, post that on YouTube and Facebook 2 or 3 days before it's to go down. But just as a note, if for some reason we're not on social media ever, we are always live on solargynetwork.com, and you can watch all these shows there. So let me first welcome Kirsty Elizabeth. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and for honoring us with your presence. We had a short little conversation before the show started, and I think I want to lead with that. You said that you kind of stepped back, which gives me the impression that you've been doing this a long time, which doesn't surprise me. And that earlier this year you were, as a lot of women in particular have described that have come on this show this year, the several hundred we've done this year, they said, I didn't want to come forward, but they've got their hands on my back and they're pushing me forward and they're saying it's time to come out. So I just want to recognize and give credit to the coming out of the divine feminine in the physical incarnation at this time in 2020 as we go into 2021, and recognize all the work that they've done for so many years in anonymity, without any recognition. Not that they wanted it, because they didn't. But they're stepping up now, and that takes a lot of courage, and the world needs it. So thank you and all your sisters, and welcome to the show. And how long have you been like this, or were you always this weird?
Oh, well, first of all, Todd, thank you for having me. I'm just absolutely ecstatic to sit here chatting to you. I watch you, and your work is fantastic, getting this message out there. So my message, the question that you're asking me, does match with that idea. That obviously I've been doing psychic work for a long time, teaching, teaching mediumship, psychic ability, healing, and offering readings to individuals. And this was in addition to my normal life, which had to take a back seat. I was actually a school teacher for a long time. And because of my weirdness, as you describe, I had to step back because I couldn't understand how to live in two worlds as a young woman. So I decided to step into this as a career, which was very, very difficult because people don't understand, for a start, this sort of skill and ability.
Yeah.
But I then decided to take 2 years off 2 years ago, just because I was just exhausted with all the people's difficulties that were being presented to me. Because if you go out into the world as a psychic reader, you will attract people who are needy, who need help, who are looking for real support. And I was lucky because I had a lot of training in counselling as my job as a teacher. And so I was lucky that I could sort of professionally manage that. But it got to the point where it sort of pushed me over, and I just decided I wasn't going to do anything to do with this world. I couldn't live in two worlds. I couldn't understand why I was living in two worlds. And I became so exhausted that I just, backed away from it.
Yeah.
I kept my blog going as an interest, and people were still following it. So because they were still following it, I felt, okay, so obviously people are looking for something from me. But this year in the summer, as usual in my life, weird things happen. But the spirit definitely appeared outwardly, which isn't very common. They don't do that very often.
Wow. Now,
and told me to get back on here. And I actually said, no, I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like Morgan. So that happened this summer? Is that when that happened?
This summer.
Okay.
I've been starting to put out information, and obviously we had the lockdowns and all this situation going on in the world. So I was focusing on the people who, my particular niche is sensitivity, because I've grown to understand that my abilities come from a sensitive nervous system.
Yeah.
So as you talk a lot on here about people who are trying to move into 5D,
yeah,
my understanding is, I've worked with a guide all my life since I was a little girl. Those guides change, but mostly they stay as the main one for a block of time. And the guides teaching me that my ability to see spirit, to see people who've passed over, to feel things and see the world in a different way that I couldn't express to other people, is because I haven't got the or I've broken through the barrier of not believing that that's not real. Do you know what I mean? And most children have these abilities, and then they grow up and they go and are told, no, you don't see this, you don't see that, you don't heal people, you don't help people with psychic, that's not real. But my guides are clear in telling me that I broke through that barrier by sort of staying friends with them, if you know what I mean, keeping that connection with them. And they're gaining my trust over a number of years. And so my mission at the moment is just to get some sort of message out to sensitive people, and that's all I'm currently doing. I've had a few people ask me for readings, and I've done a few, but I'm not making money. I'm not trying to be pushy, or I'm just trying to offer a way of seeing, and people just seem to be understanding it and clicking. And I think it's matching to what people who are sensitive, and you mentioned a lot of females with the divine feminine, they seem to be called, but it's not just females. It's there's as I watch your programs, I see you and your guests talk a lot about the sort of awakening or waking up of people. Well, I have people come to me because they are in a life in a 3D world, as you would say, and they want to understand, well, why am I seeing this? Why am I feeling related to this? And it's all to do with their background, spiritual and spirituality, their previous lives, their sort of lineage, their spiritual lineage, if you like. And what's happening is en masse at the moment, since the autumn, as you know, we've had all these portals. I know yourself and Morgan have been putting a lot of information about that, these sort of whooshes that we've had of energy coming in the autumn, which is what I think my guides wanted me to get most of the information out for the autumn, ready for now. But we're seeing this whoosh of people who are just waking up to, hang on, I'm not sure who I am. And the last person that I spoke to had been a pastor in an evangelist church for all of his life. He was in his 50s, and he wanted to speak to me privately because he felt that this was all wrong for him, and that he was actually what you would describe as a starseed, and that he felt he'd come from another dimension, and that he realized that how could he then come out as this sort of this coming out into the world. So
that's a lot. There's so many places to go with this. We have a show in, what is it? I think an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd like to take as much time as we can. I want to get a little better understanding now, and then come back to 2020, and also come back to this one example that you're giving with this pastor. And I got to tell you, I don't know what's going on, but I've learned to appreciate what's happening in the now moment, and also to the sensations of the body. But so right now, as we've started to talk, I'm not about to start crying, but I can feel not fear, but I can feel emotion, like those purity tears, like building up. So there's something going on here.
Yeah.
So you describe or refer to your early life. I get the sense that you've always had a high sensitivity. A lot of people have come on here and said, yeah, I had it when I was young. I was told my imaginary friends weren't real. I was told that there was nothing under the bed, and all that stuff. And a lot of us have experienced psych wards or incarceration, certainly ridicule and estrangement from family. And it sounds like in terms of your professional career, you probably had a little bit of pressure there as well.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I love about this show is the experiences that people have, because we know there's no linear, regardless of how far ahead they were, or how much sooner it might have happened to them, or what we might see as their abilities and skills as being beyond ours, is that I find that there's a lot of commonalities between what someone like yourself has gone through and experienced, and that is helpful to people now. So for one thing, you said that all through this journey of your life, you've had different faces of the universe that have approached you and guided you and informed you and downloaded you, and that they stay for a while. Most of them are the significant ones, and then they move on, and others come in. Now, there's always a challenge of overcoming the externalization, what's outside of ourselves and what is inside of ourselves, as within, without, and so on. What was your journey like in terms of the externalization? I mean, when you first started to get these things coming in, I know in my own case 9 years ago, I certainly saw them as separate, but then there was a kind of an evolution where they became part of me or embodied within me. Yeah. How was that for you? Was it challenging for you to accept these things as you internally? Do you still see them as external? Can you just fill us in a little bit on where you're coming from?
Yeah, so I mean, those people who know me, who follow me and got to know me through my classes in my local area, they will all understand that where I come from is a place of absolute honesty, and I think that's been my blessing and my curse, because I've been the most skeptical psychic, and I've been the hardest person for spirit to work with sometimes. One of the things that I've been really keen to teach and get across all the time in my messages is, this idea that you can so easily run with this in your head and be in fantasy land. and explaining to people where the truth is and where it isn't. And basically, if you're seeing some sort of spirit that's telling, if I saw a spirit in the night that's told me I'm going to marry Johnny Depp, and then I didn't marry Johnny Depp, then that's in my head.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's all about proofs. And I've built, I'm 50 this year. So I've built a lifetime of learning this proofs and trust. That's taken me such a long, long time to get to this point. I mean, 10 years ago, the thought of me saying all this with you would have absolutely shocked the life out of me. I would never have dreamed of it. But in terms of seeing the spirit world, there's so many different forms that spirit can appear in, because, as you know, actually, really, they're all from the same source.
Yes.
Right? So it doesn't matter what your lineage is. It's all from the same source. It's just they will approach you in a way that you will understand. So for some people, it's just signs and messages, like certain songs playing on radio or repeated. Someone on the telly repeats what you've just said. Like those funny coincidences, right? But for other people, it is the mediumship side of it is all in the head, mostly. How I learned to do mediumship was because I was hounded by the nasty side of the spirit world, which I never talk about in my Facebook world, because my followers are all sensitives and it frightens the life out of them, but I can talk about the dark side if I want to. I know all about it. In fact, hate it. I don't want anything to do with it. But and before we came on, I was saying to you about I'm letting you do your job here because you're multitasking. I actually also meant that your job as a light warrior of shielding, you're doing that, and you're actually using energy doing that, holding this space here for people like myself to be able to come on and talk here openly, because as a sensitive, I'm quite vulnerable to dark energies.
Yes.
Whereas you have a natural light warrior, sort of like a shielding and a strength that is much more ambitious and brave, whereas I wouldn't be able to sort of do that without that energy happening.
Wow.
So spirit appears in different forms. It can be animals, it can just be people's energy, it can be things that you see in your mind, it can be signs and symbols, or it can be apparitions. And apparitions are good and not good, and you have to learn how to deal with that. And that's how I came into it as a young woman. I was being frightened to death by seeing so many ghosts and spirits that I didn't know how to deal with it. And I got broken into this world of who I really am by my neighbour died. And I was about 25 and he would have been about 38. And I'd only just moved into the house. So I'd only met him a couple of times, very briefly. And I didn't know he was ill. But I was at work and I got told that he died, and I came home, and he started to come to me, wanted me to tell his wife that he was okay.
Right.
And I was ignoring it. And it got to the point where he actually just physically manifested right in front of me.
Wow.
And I hid under the covers. And then when I lifted the covers out, his face was right there. And he was like, "Look, I know who you are. Do your job.
Wow.
I know who you are in the future." And I was like, no, not me. And he just imprinted onto my head all this information that he wanted his wife to know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how do you go round to someone's house that you don't know very well, who's lost their husband, and tell them that? And so I had to face all that.
Wow.
And so 25 years later, it's been a long, long journey. But I feel I'm now starting to get to the point where he would be proud of who I can come out and say I am.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that. Because I know when I first reawoke 9 years ago, that was my grandmother came to me, and then there was some ascendeds as well, but there was like probably 25 or 30 different souls that had transitioned, that some that I knew and some that I didn't, that wanted me to, for the most part, connect with family members that were living, give them messages, and also sometimes it was just to get an explanation, but it stopped after like 8 or 9 months, and then it went on to other stuff. You've got so much stuff that we can we can dig into.
Well, you see, because my gift is a seer.
Yeah.
So, but you see, your gift may not be that, but you'll have times intuitively. I'm sure you must sort of get this from your partner, because she's more similar to me. So you must see, that you can sometimes get into that zone and be seeing, and that, but you don't need to be all the time.
No.
Whereas for some reason, my life purpose is this vision, this perception all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I've experienced apparitions alone in the early years, and then of course with Morgan, we've talked about it. And I realized that, one of the things that's a challenge in the lightworker community is the fact that the universe communicates with each one of us, like you said, in a different way, in a way that we can understand. And so it kind of lends to the continuation or perpetuation of separation, because I might look at you and go, oh my God, you can do that. Or I spend a lot of time looking at Morgan going, oh my God, she can do that. Why can't I do it? But then you look at it and you realize there's things that you do. And then, like you said, some people just go through life and it's subtle and it's synchronistic, and there's omens and there's signs. And I think that energy is increasing now, and it's becoming more of a mainstream conversation, or at least we're going to do what we can to see if we can make that happen. But I appreciate the specifics of what you're talking about. I want to just touch on one thing real quick before we move on, because I do think it's an important subject, because there is more contrast today than there's ever been in terms of polarity. And of course, stepping into what we might call the non-physical realm, or that part of us, it isn't always, fluffy love and light. There are other things that present themselves, and I went through, probably 5 years of it, where I would call it, it was kind of like a training or initiation, but I reached a point where I was able to I guess, zero point the darkest things I'd seen and the lightest thing I'd seen. In terms of like advice, from your experience, from your perspective, for people that are really starting to open up now, because there's so many, how would you suggest that they deal with what might be considered dark energy, or less than sweet and happy energetic entities?
Well, I've got two answers to that, because my guides currently, I try to follow what my guides are saying, and what they do is narrow everything down into teaching points. So you have to bear in mind that they're trying to zoom in on something, and what they've been working on this month in particular, putting forward, is this idea of light warriors and light workers. Okay. So actually, us two sitting here would fit nicely in those two categories. So light warriors, those people can deal with the darker side of the energetic world, should we call it, the nasty side.
Right.
They can deal with that really well. They can go in and call them out, because the dark energies are only like bullies.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
They can't actually harm you. I had a very difficult situation where my daughter is a completely high sensitive, and I'm an empath, but I'm a seer, as I said. Now, her skill is feeling. She's taught me from a young age that she can feel everything. Like, I can't bring anyone to the house without her knowing. She'll come in and say, well, why was so-and-so here? She can feel. She can read the air. Right. So she can pick up all sorts of things, dark things. We've been to lots of historical places, castles, things like that. She can pick up what's gone on, and it can make her really depressed as well. So somebody like her is not going to be chasing, going ghost hunting, or fighting off demons. All right. But somebody who's a light warrior can take that on. And some people have a mission to actually go around clearing those and actually clear that energy. All right. And those people that you're talking about that are awakening to that, they will be the people who are looking for proofs, who are looking to go on ghost hunts, ghost walks, get the evidence. There's like a drive in them, because they've got to see it, they've got to learn it. And that's how they start to awaken. The sensitives, they're going to have the bad experiences and need to block them out or call in someone to help them.
Yeah.
That's in my daughter's case, I had to get somebody in. Because she wasn't telling me, but she was staying at her dad's house, and there she was seeing this horrible character. This, where her dad lived, was an old coaching inn, really old sight, and this what I'll call a ghost, if you like, was appearing to her and telling her really nasty things, to the point where he was trying to threaten her and say, join me, kill yourself, join me over here.
Wow.
And I had to get someone involved in that. Now, what I'd just like to say is that we're touching here on a really delicate issue, that my background as a teacher and as a professional has taught me a lot of information about the reality of mental health issues.
Yes.
And where that boundary is between the psychic world and that world. And I just want to say that there's so much misunderstanding out there about that world. For a while, I worked in a shop that sold a lot of tarot cards, crystals, dream catchers, and all this sort of thing.
Right.
The people that were coming into the shop of asking things, they don't have the right communication about all this. It's all TV land, film land.
Yes.
So one of my missions is to try and explain it properly and clearly through my bit at a time posts, right? Yeah. So in terms of what you're saying, dealing with the dark side, you've got to keep your energy clean. Sensitives need to be cleansed and detoxed as much as they can, and need to do that daily work of the visualization, the meditation, of eating all the right foods that help the body. And using things like sage to cleanse energy, because it's all what do you call, like manifesting an intention.
This
think
is
but it isn't. It's just manifesting. This is what I want into the world, right?
And I'm really happy that you drew that distinction between light worker and light warrior, although we know there's no separation. But I think in this transition there are degrees of separation and degrees of oneness that only makes sense because we've got to evolve into this. And I think we're actually creating this ourselves, like a new template or a new blueprint. But I think this is a great example, and I just want to restate it because I've had a similar experience. Now, when I reawoke 9 years ago, I was sent to some places, and one of the first things that happened to me was I was sent to a place where there was a lot of history. It was an old plantation. There was a lot of history of just rape, murder, oppression, black versus white, and it was all new to me. But I went over there, and as soon as I got there, I saw everything. But it was all, like you were saying about your daughter, kind of sensing things. But I walked back to a barn in the back of the barn because I knew there was an entity there. I saw this orb, big orb, and I saw this black man who had been there and so this whole thing went on. But I guess what I was trying to say is that I was like so infused, even though I was questioning myself. Am I crazy? What am I hearing? These voices? Why am I seeing these things? I was like unafraid, like I knew that was my role. Like I could walk through a fire. But then I had the same situation that you had. I have a daughter who was born into the world. I have six kids, and this one was seeing things from day one. Daddy, look at those colors. Grandma's at the back. Grandma is in the back patio. She wants to talk to me. So she was very, very sensitive, and I knew that from a very get-go. And she had an entity or energy that was in her room. She would even wake up with bruises. And so I did work on that, but I can see the difference now of what you're saying. I can look at Morgan, like you, very highly sensitive. If we connect at night, and I've talked about it on the show, she'll have her, if there is any external energy that's coming into focus, her head is beneath the blanket, like this, and mine's like this. I want to see it, so that's a really important distinction. And on this show, in 2,500 episodes, nobody's really ever made that point. But I think that's a good thing to remember. You also talked about this year, and I think this year obviously has been absolutely mind-blowing, and more is to come, and then it comes 2021. Now, you were actually kind of in a holding pattern for a couple of years. You get a call in the summer, and I remember distinctly that on June the 1st, wherever I was, I came out, I think it was here, came out of the house, and I thought, oh my God, everything's changed. Was it in June when this happened? And what kind of message did you get? And I think you also said there was an apparition involved.
Yeah, so obviously I always work with guides, and when I write my Facebook posts, I channel. You can tell the posts that are channeled and the posts that are me talking if you look through them. You know, I read them back and go, cool, blimey, that was good.
Right.
It's because it's not me, okay? But what happened in the summer? And can I just tell you something else first about you?
Yes, ma'am.
Just the night before you guys messaged me, because I'm just a little person. I'm just a little female person who's got a mum, right? And I've got all these weird abilities. That's it. And I have a hobby of putting out my weird ability on Facebook. But
well, you're with all the weirdos now, so don't worry about it.
So the guide appeared to me, I don't know if it's last week or the week before, but it wasn't long ago. And he said to me, we want you to get this out bigger. And I was like, no, you know, because I always say no straight away, like you say. And he said, yes, this has got to go out to more people. And I said, oh, you know, I don't know how to do all that. I don't know. You're talking about YouTube and all that. I don't know. And I haven't got the interest in all that technology. What you would need to do is get me someone who's already doing that and invite me to their show. And your message came through the next morning.
You can't make.
And I was like, I wish I hadn't mentioned that in that board meeting.
Be careful what you ask for, right?
Yeah. So literally they are working that fast. But what happened in the summer? Yeah. And I think obviously I had been putting things up because, like I said, I didn't give up on my blog, but it was maybe May or June. And they started saying to me, we need you to start doing your readings again and come forward more. And I said, no. And it took me until September to start doing readings for people. And I only do a few. I don't want to be some person that sits talking to the spirit world all day, but I help people that they sent to me. Now, one of the reasons that I have had to take 2 years off is actually due to illness. And I believe that I, and listening to some of the people that you've interviewed, have gone through what the masses are going through a little bit earlier in terms of the energy, in terms of that being knocked off your feet. And I feel like Spirit World wanted me to sit still and just listen. And so I just decided that I'm just going to become a listener. And it just got clearer and clearer. Okay, so that when they actually appeared to me and said, we've got people that want to talk to you, they specifically said to me, it's for the sensitives and for the people who've suffered the illness that you've had, because you have the answer. Because I've done a lot of research for the last 2 years on finding out about why I became unwell, and also about how my spiritual abilities are impacting on it. As you guys all know now about all this heavy energy that's going on, that exists in my world all my life. Yeah. Because I'm living in a different. If I do a reading and there's mediumship and my vibration goes up and I'm connected, or even if I have a moment of talking to my guide like that, when you come back down to 3D, it's like you've a car crash. You feel so deflated. Yeah. And I think through the years of going up and down like that and trying to respond to it and trying to work it all out, just got the better of me and not just literally knocked me down. So I developed an energy illness. I call them an energy illness. There's lots of them. But the spirit world have been trying to encourage me to get back on my feet, and because I lost all my confidence of being a person because I felt so unwell. And so the spirit world were trying to encourage me to get back. And through that, what they've done is they've brought me people. So, okay, I trust you to bring me people. I'm not kidding you. The first month I said I'll do a couple of readings that I just put on the bottom of the post. Contact me if you like a reading. And I had 9 people in the first 4 weeks who all had the exact same illness as me and just really wanted to find out about that. And they had no idea that I had that illness. Obviously, I don't talk about it. So Spirit World will send you what you need to do at your level. You know, Spirit World will work with you. Spirit World will send you the messages that make sense to you. So if you feel you are, you know, I've come from another dimension, then they'll talk to you and they'll send you things and show you things. Like, for example, on YouTube, have you ever sat with your spirit guide and on YouTube and got them to just take you on a journey? and show you and where they want to show you things. It's amazing. They teach you about who you are and what you need to know. You know, by how you watch this on YouTube and then it says you may like this, that, and the other, and you sort of before you know it, you've gone all over the shop.
It's the same with the. I don't know if I hear it the way you do, but I can tell you many times over the years, especially the early years, because I wasn't even familiar with, really the internet till about 2013. Not in terms of like light worker and all that, but yeah, I can remember many times spending 5-6 hours, for an extended period of time, probably several months, 2014, 2015, of just watching stuff, just being led to this, being led to that. It's amazing now when I do it now, because I can see, and I know it's not me, but I can see the vast acceleration of code intake. Like I can watch 3 minutes of this and 6 minutes of that and 8 minutes of this and 2 minutes of that, and it's almost like as if you would put your hand on a book and absorb everything. Where several years ago, it wasn't moving as fast. It was still there, and I got to believe that that's indicative of what's happening collectively, and I think a lot of that has to do with really with people like you, primarily divine feminine energy that's had this sacred wisdom, that's anchored it in quietly, that's sat in the background, not wanting to be seen. And here we are. Here we are heading into 2021. It seems like that, and I want to ask you about this. You really started to make the move again in September. And I love the fact that you are skeptical, or I don't want to say resistant, but that you question and discern for yourself these connections that you have, regardless of how they come across. But what I was going to say is they're really, over the last, I want to say about 5 weeks. It's so hard to remember time. I've been getting, I would say, a new series of downloads, but it's really a continuation of some downloads I got like in 2013, 14, 15, which had to do with galactic history, Earth history, what we're doing here. And they've kind of come back on in the last 5 weeks. A very galactic, mission-oriented, hey, it's time. Todd, you like to play around and be goofy, but it's time to get serious. And really, that's what I've been hearing. And especially this morning, I heard it really loud. I was like, what? I can't be silly and joke around and no. But you just need to understand this. It's really important now. And I struggle with that. Maybe you can help us, but I struggle with that because at the higher perspective, let's say the higher self perspective, just to keep it simple, I can see the perfection of everything. I can see the galactic beneath me, and I can see the earth beneath that in terms of perception and comprehension. But there just seems to be a real urgency like I've never felt before. Not in terms of like, oh my God, if it doesn't work, everyone's gonna, be in 1,000 years of darkness or something. It's not like that. It's just like, hey, we have an opportunity. It's ripe like a fruit on the tree. You have this reciprocation and collaboration and cooperation with the universal outside of you. And let's get to work. Let's get jiggy with it. Does that resonate? Does that resonate with you? That, and particularly the galactic part. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah. So obviously, I've asked about this because my background is more of an old soul, where I've remember a lot of lives. I mean, very clearly, I've had a lot of information about those lives. My guides even sort of call me the name that I was in one of those. That's how they see me. They don't see me in this, who this is. Yeah. So, but I have not had that connection. However, my guide tells me that I have, because he's reminded me that I had memories that I know have sort of understand to be the Atlantis idea. Okay. But what he said to me about the Starseeds, he's saying to me, just so this, that I've worked with children. Obviously, my job as a school teacher was this special needs teacher. I was in charge of anybody who had any difficulty, behavior, autism, non-verbal, couldn't walk, anything. That was my role. Okay. And the amount of children that I worked with different guides was unbelievable. And I found that the first time I connected with the idea of other galactic guides was through children that are non-verbal. And I could hear their guides, and they talk in more than one voice. It's like a collective voice. It's such a weird thing. And I realized that the reason the children weren't talking is because they don't need to, and they don't know understanding of that of why do you need to talk, sort of thing. That they were all telepathic in a way. So, but on the human world, we look at them and try to work out what's wrong with them. Instead of trying to work out what their gifts are, because all of those children have real talents in things like art, music, and they just have exceptional gifts. Okay, but we overlook that and look for all their problems. So the Starseeds, my guide tells me at the moment, is that he separated the two human energy forces that work with the light at the moment for this December portal into two, the sensitives and the light warriors, which matches up with all the divine feminine, divine masculine, that you said is the polarity.
Yes.
It matches up with that idea that it's almost the warriors are the more masculine energy, but it's nothing to do with gender. It's just, it's just at the moment, you and I sat here, but it's just as it is, but it could be any gender. And he talks to me about the Starseeds are with the light warrior of being, because of their background, because of the lives they've lived before, because of the energies they bring here and the dimensions and the deep coded knowledge that they actually hold within them, that they may not remember, but they hold. They are part of the breaking down of the darkness at the moment that we're seeing going on. And we're seeing this in the manifested 3D world. And also I'm being told all the time that this is going on hugely in dimensions.
I'm getting that
we can't understand. This idea of the darkness versus the light. And, the Starseeds play such a massive role in this. I don't know all the answers, but, sometimes I've watched different shows, even your people talking, and it seems to me that perhaps they've got answers that like someone like me, an old soul, couldn't have, because they resonate with truths from a different place, that I could never understand.
Well, there's no doubt that there's we're multidimensional. There's multiple streams, and just like you're talking about working with these children, how they have multiple. We're all energy complexes. I mean, we're all. I remember when I first started making videos in 2012 or 13, I can't remember, and I remember I would watch the videos to see. To see how I did. It was a human part of me, and then it didn't take long before I never watched any because I couldn't get through them. But what I did notice was different parts of me would be speaking. I might be a preacher in one, and I might be and have another attribute in another, and I've noticed it in other people as well.
Well, this is another thing that my guide's been keen to put across at the moment. A lot of the work that I've been doing on Facebook is very much based on archetypes and mythology. And I've said to him, look, isn't this encouraging the fantasy zone? And he said to me, no, because it's basic human nature to connect with those. Like you just said, sometimes you're talking, and these are voices that you've heard in your life, that you've grown up with and understood. So you don't realize, but perhaps a certain teacher has resonated with you, and you go into that, you're almost copying that style. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when I first woke up, there were 6, because that's the way I could understand it. There were 6, I guess you would call them biblical prophets. I would call them ascendants.
But you saw Jesus. I saw you.
Jesus was the one that started it. But what I was going to say is those 6. Well, Jesus was like the head guy. But daily it was those 6, and this went on for almost 2 years. And but each one of them had certain attributes. And so what you're saying rings true, because if I remember looking at some of those early videos, and these were what I called spirit walks, where I would just walk on the street and basically commune with the universe, but just film it. And but I could see different aspects of those ascendeds that were coming through. You know,
Yeah.
it's a little bit, and of course this is again good subject matter because these are things that people are going through.
Yeah.
And you know, even people like yourself, or even my wife, myself, I can think of, you know, in the last 6 months, you know, on an individual level, questioning ourselves, like, why am I here? What's
Mhm.
this all about? What's the point? You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter if you just woke up, or if you've been awake for a long time, or been someone like you or Morgan. There's this, I used to say when I first woke, and I didn't say it, it came through, that the universe is going to give you 90% proof. You know, there's always going to be this block, this 10% that you're never going to get, and that's faith. And that's, now that I've got to this point, I believe that's the part that we're contributing to the universe, is what we do with that 10%. You know, like, how far can we take it, you know,
Yeah.
through our self-empowerment.
Well, in the angelic world, what people would understand by your words there would be the contract, the angelic contract. That this, you know, I'm always saying to people that my guide's really keen to get across this message that they're not fairy godmothers. Like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about spirit working, and a lot of labels that go with it that push us, suppress us, and make, you know, words like woo, for example, that have come about. But he says to me that, you know, you've got to learn, and we have to lead you and help you, but we can't keep running in solving everything and
Yes.
showing you and telling you everything,
Yeah.
because
Time,
that's not helping you achieve what you came here to do.
time to grow up. That's what
Yeah.
Morgan said. I said to her, when I first met her, I was like, so you've been downloading, you know, about these different things like ascension? And she said, well, they never called it ascension. They always called it growing up.
Ah.
Yeah. And I guess if you think about it, you know, the universal law of non-interference, and you can look at this realm and look at, well, maybe there's been some interference, and maybe that's why this is such a field of huge potential, because we've had such extreme polarity. But yeah, you know, it's very refreshing to talk to someone who has had these experiences, yet still really is grounded in their human aspect. Does that take a lot of work for you? Is that
Yeah.
something you had to work on?
Yeah, actually, I feel that's, like I was saying, a lot to do with why I've suffered the energy illness, that
Hmm.
heaviness that I get.
Okay.
And I get very tired and achy because I am literally living in two worlds, and this is, you know, my guide said to me, this is what the awakening is. You know, people seem to think that they're going to wake up into 2021 and we're all singing and dancing and living on, you know. But he said to me, I have to tell you this, Todd. When I first started 2020, asking him about what did you want to put out, he said to me, this is a 3-year learning.
Okay.
Right. He's recently said to me that the changes that you guys are talking about on your shows, with people about things like ascension and their sort of inner knowing and all this sort of, you know what I mean, all that sort of
Yeah.
area. He said to me, in terms of the masses, you guys are a small percentage that are leading that sort of thinking, but he said that doesn't, you know, come on mass. We're looking at least into the 2030s.
Wow.
So people like us have got a 10-year mission
Yeah.
to still be this voice that's a bit lost in the dark, I think. But
Yeah, that fits with, you know, some of the stuff that I've heard here, the things that resonate with me, and also some of the stuff that's been coming in. I think you mentioned something about 3 years. You know, Franco D. Nicola comes on here about twice a month. His intel is his collective intel is very strong, and he talks about 21, 22, 23, a kind of a period there where everything gets deconstructed. Um, and
yeah,
and so that kind of fits with what you're saying. And then the other thing too is what resonates with me with what you're saying is In fact, I was actually shown a number this morning, and I can't recall what it was. I wrote it down, but I think it's 188 million. It was not a big number in terms of the 8 billion people on the earth, but it was kind of along the same lines of this is the traction that you have. These are the beacons on the earth, the new earth grid. And it's a very small number when you consider it in literal terms, but in terms of energy, it's a very large percentage. And basically showing how there would be a huge contrast in terms of our capabilities for those who I've mentioned versus what's happening on the collective as it gets more and more distorted, really no different than, as you were talking about, let's call them dark entities in your own path. They can't really hurt you, but they can certainly distort things and create fear and the program. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that falls in line with. And what are your thoughts on these next 2 or 3 years? Like as you come back into this since this past summer, as you've been told, you're going to be on say a 3-year learning curve or whatever they refer to that as. How do you see this happening, or are we just better off staying present and not even worrying about it?
Well, I have asked about this, and one of the things they said to me is that I said to them, what's going to go on the 21st? Everyone going ranting on about 21st of December. What did it tell me? And the first thing they said to me was, look, on the physical plane, everything's about setting a time and a date. Yeah. So you and I arranged this date. We're sat here now doing it. Yeah. But he said, but in terms of energy, there's no pinpoint like that. It comes in and out. Yeah. So things that we because I was saying to him, when's the actual time that the sort of divine feminine masculine unity was, and yeah. When are we looking at that golden child era? Okay, so he said that I can't give you a time and a date. That's a human thing. It will come in waves, and you'll be on here and you'll be talking and you'll be thinking it's now, and then it will dip. Oh, I thought it was, but it was not. But I was sure it was, but then it will come back again, because over time, you think of the vastness of time, and we don't live long enough actually to interact deeply enough with that sort of time energy. Yeah. So we are picking up things, but we are still very much prophets of what's to come. All right. Yeah. And so when my guide said to me at the beginning of 2020 that this is a 3-year thing, now looking back on that, I've not released that information, because when we started to have the virus and the lockdowns, I thought if I start putting that out, it's going to frighten the life out of everybody, But now I'm reaching the end of 2020. I think it's an important time to start letting everybody know that what's gone on, this collapse of the 3D, should we call it the dark side of the 3D world, the materialism, the power, the politics, all that stuff, that continues. That does not, we haven't done it. Yeah. All we've done is started to notice it. Yeah. Yeah. So
no, I can see it. Yeah.
We've got that to continue. And the world that we know, that this transformation of this age where most people are like us, most people are chatting on this level, most people are telepathic, most people get the fact that I can see dead people and don't mind, right? Mm-hmm. To get to that point, we're a long way from that. Yeah. Right. So we are, like I said, we're the pioneers, and we are really, we're just the very seeds of it still.
Yeah, that's what that aligns with what I was referring to. It was, I guess, another way to put it. You mentioned the golden child energy was that 100 and Adam just put up 178 million. That might have been what I wrote down, but I know it was 178, 188 million. This just came in this morning, and it was basically along the lines of what you're talking about, how the distortion would get much bigger, but that there was this strong minority that was carrying the golden child energy. So it was almost like walking through, let's say, walking through a hurricane, and you are the eye of the hurricane, no matter where you go within the hurricane, or you're walking through a battlefield and no one can see you, and you're impervious to any of the 3D distortion, and you just continue to walk with that light and expand that light.
Yeah. So where I would see it is that, I mean, as a community spirit, you know what I mean? Like where I was a teacher,
Yeah.
many sensitive people go into community roles like teaching, nursing, all that sort of thing. They are the golden child. They are carrying it.
Yeah.
They are carrying that energy in their hearts, because, I mean, look at this year, all the nurses and doctors and anyone who works in hospital, the pressures they've been under, and the worries, and, you know, especially things like old people's homes who don't get paid much, but are the lifeline to the life of a person. These people are carrying in their hearts what I believe is the golden child era. And it won't be until we've battled down our priorities of finances and how we make decisions about community spirit. It won't be until that point that we can live in a different community, because and that's going to take a lot of bringing down.
Yeah.
One of my friends is a local counsellor, and she's very spiritual, and she does a lot of work for the community, but she faces so much attack from the other counsellors all the time, who don't want to hear the let's look after, let's do the best for everybody message.
Yeah.
It's all about, well, let's look at the red tape. Let's make the decisions on this amount of money, this budget.
Yeah.
It's still all very grey. And this whole energy comes from, you know, the sort of after the Second World War, the build-up that we had then, and the 1980s push for power and targets and achievement and success. And unfortunately, people such as you and I were brought up in that era and became young adults in that era. And we are still, even though we have our spiritual mindset and our own experiences, and I see what I see, we are still battling down that conditioning all the time.
Absolutely.
Of supposed to be somebody, be somewhere, achieve something. So I think you asked me and you said, should we do something or should we not do anything about what's coming for the next 3 years? And my guide's answer is that he always says to me this, that action and non-action are the same. They are the same. They're going to get to the same point. So all the polarity that we're seeing, he's saying this side and this side is the same. It gets to the same point. All that's happening is that you and I are bouncing around in it, learning from this and that, and where we feel we fit in. And at the same time, we're highly aware that we are living in ego and trying not to be Todd and Kirsty.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's early days for this big sort of prophecy of this transformation of humans. There's a long way to go yet.
I like what you brought up about the all of it, but the action, non-action, like that's really big right now. At least it is for me, and for some people I've observed. But what I get from it is what your guide said is it's the frequency. You can actually sustain the same frequency in action or non-action, right? I mean, a lot of people, and I've talked about it with Soulgy, 9 years. I mean, it took us to get a website, and we're still got a lot of work to do on it. But every time went in to take action, that was, like you said earlier, we grew up in that environment, that capitalistic business strategy environment. And every time we would go to build it with those types of mechanisms or programs or be patterns, it would just blow up and we would have to start over. But late this year, there was an organic infusion of energy from other people as well as ourselves, and it just started to organically and naturally flow and grow. And I thought, oh wow, that's interesting. So now what do? Do I frame it up and try to take some action, or do I stay in this place of no action? And you're right. It's like almost like an infinity sign that's getting smaller and smaller, and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting how that's working.
In your case, you're being guided to. I mean, you're guided to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what my guide recently telling me is about energy of two minds. One is your mental energy and your consciousness in your mind, and the other one is your bodily consciousness.
Yeah.
And people like yourself, I've got to spend the time alone to sort of feel deep resonation with what they're doing, which will mean rest. Because my guide's telling me to tell you, they really want you to sit and listen a minute. You're getting tired, all right? And they want to give you there's some big information coming for you, but you need to be physically ready. The thing is, you've got to operate in a 3D world, haven't you, of this body?
Yeah.
And like I said, it's all about time scales. It's all about appointments, when you can fit people in, and then you're going to have a drink, and you're human, so you've got to eat and shower and all that, you know. So I think that we're living in these two forms of body and mind, and that the more that we can just rest and bring our body and mind together, the more that we will feel that sense of non-action is happening. It's just happening for us.
Yeah.
Because our mind is always trying to tell us, yes, but have you thought of this? Yes, but, and of course, you know, if you're in a relationship, you'll also be worrying about you keeping your partner happy and your children happy, and then I've got to pop to the shop and get this and that, and you know what I mean. Your mind's all active of action all the time. So I think that we all just need to spend more time, and that's what's happened to me. My body literally stopped working, and I just had to sit still and listen.
Yeah, you were forced.
Yeah.
You were forced into the universal isolation, which can be a huge gift. But like you talked a little bit about what you do, you know, on an individual basis, and of course on your blog and such. But did you mention something, or do you have any guidance or direction for people in terms of you know, initiating and expanding a connection, a communion with their team?
What, can you just explain what you mean?
So, in other words, somebody wants to have more clarity. I know I had people mention this on shows, and they write, and it's, I don't really get into answering stuff like that. I just, what I'm saying is they want to expand their connection and have more clarity and depth with their team.
Well, it's the same. It's the same as if you go to mediumship training, right? You have to deliver proofs. I think, you know, belonging to the spiritualist church when I was young and being part of seeing how that worked really helped me in life anyway there. So you have to have proof. So most people aren't seers, don't see, you know, don't have messages. They have different gifts. But what they do have is very powerful intuition.
Yes.
Right. And so they are listening to their intuition. And now if something comes about that they were thinking, for example, I talk about the sensitives a lot. A lot of sensitives are in conditions where at the moment in the world where they've gone out to work to try and help the world, to make the world a better place, doing jobs, like I said. And they are feeling some suppressed, and they're feeling there's a power behind that isn't actually on board with their heart. Right. So what they're going to do, these are the types of people that come to me for readings because they don't know what to do or what will happen, you know, what choices they've got. Those people need to listen quietly to what their intuition is telling them and voice it or write it, and then see it manifest. So, for example, if you felt like that person's nice to my face, but when I go, I've got a feeling that behind my back, and then eventually you'll get to the point where you'll have that proof.
I get a lot of those.
Yeah. So it's proof, and it's sticking to proof. So here's an example of a proof a bit more tougher than that one. When a while back, as I said, I've got a daughter, but I've also got a son, and he's more like you, as a light warrior. He holds the house. He's very his energy is really important here. He's older. He's not young. He's 23 now, but when he was younger, I was going through a patch where I was final stages of working in schools and seeing spirits and thinking, I can't hold this together because things like I'll be driving home from parents' evening, and then a spirit would appear in the back of the car. I'll be like, "And who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm Anthony's dad." I said, "Well, what do you mean you're Anthony's dad?" He said, "Well, it's parents' evening, and this lad had lost his father about 4 years before." So things like that. So my life was getting to the point where I couldn't live the normal life. It was just bugging me too much, right? So I was at the final stages of teaching, and before I decided to give it up, and I kept seeing the spirit on the landing all the time, this lady, and she wanted to talk to me. She wanted me to give a message to someone who worked in school, and I was like, no, I can't. This is a no-no. You know, this world does not go into schools. The schools are Christian based in the UK. You can't take this sort of world into to teachers, and it doesn't fit. Okay. But eventually what happened was my son came to me in the night, knocked on the door about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, yeah. And he opened the door and I said, Mum, yes, what are we going to do about this woman on the landing?
Holy shiitake mushrooms.
Yeah. And so that's the point. Okay, so I went and gave the message, and then she stopped appearing, and the woman was very, very pleased to hear that message.
Well, and that's another thing that's happening too, with more frequency, is where two or more people are kind of intertwined in their experience with, synchronicities and validations, and you really gave a great example, and I want to kind of give it more validation in real time, which to me is the most important intel we have. But I think it was yesterday. Well, let me say this first. When I first woke up, I went on the streets by my own choice for a couple of years, and especially the first few months, and just walked and walked and walked, and lived homeless, and I mean that in with respect and honor. And but the first thing I heard coming into that situation was Job, Job, from the Bible, right? And I'd never read the Bible, but I'd heard the patience of Job. And then over a few weeks, every day something would come in. I'd be shown this that was written in the book of Job, or this would happen, or that would happen. So a couple of days ago, uh, Job popped into my head. Now this is coming, and I'm telling this because of what you're talking about, not because it's about me, because it's not. Uh, so he came in, or that energy came in on kind of after I'd been getting these pushes, more pushes, like, okay, it's time, get serious, expand, almost like do something. This is where I brought up the action and the non-action thing, trying to figure out where to go with it. And I think more solitude is probably the answer, like you said. But anyway, so then it would have been a day or two ago, a mutual friend, somebody who has a lot of respect for you. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't have permission. They're on the show right now. They reached out to me and said, I have a new Facebook. This is me. You remember me? I'm like, yeah. So glad you're having Kirsty come on. And then I'm watching this earlier in the movie. In the show, and they wrote about Job as I'm talking to you. And as I'm talking to you, as soon as I read that, I start getting information while I'm trying to listen to you. But this is my point in all of this is how I'm seeing it start to work. Everything that's happening is like turning a page and reading a book. And it doesn't look like on the surface that the two situations can be related, but they're actually very seamless and very cohesive. And now I'm starting to notice, certainly with Morgan for quite some time, but really since we met, but now that organically there's been a monad in the physical, or a circle that's appearing of like-minded individuals, or maybe family, soul family in the incarnated state or whatever, and they're starting to all kind of entangle in a good way, in a uniform way. And that to me is very encouraging, even like this show today, like you were saying earlier, it fits.
Yeah. So about 25 years ago, my guides told me about what they used this term, the gathering, and I've always remembered it, but I've never really understood it. But what they were trying to explain was a gathering of, and I'm part of it. So I would say that it's, you know, you meeting you would be part of the gathering. That it's a collection of people who are here to hold knowledge.
Yes.
You know, to hold, and like I said, some people hold knowledge just in their vibration, and they don't realize it. Everyone has a different ability. There's someone that comes on your show, who's a poet, and he's sometimes on Michael. That's it. I've seen, and his guide appeared behind him one point, but his guide is from a very, very far distant reaching dimension. Very, oh my God, yeah. And he it was really interesting watching that. Sorry, I won't say anything on here, but you know, everyone's coming from different dimensions and different places, and we are all meeting up and trying to suss it out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just wanted to tell you something. David Icke lives up the road from me.
Does he really? You know, I got to tell you that that's fascinating. Are you on the Isle of Wight?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just had this, and here's another one, right? I mean, I did a solo show 3 or 4 months ago, and I know when I do this, and I've done it for years, there are times, I love the way you said it, like you can tell when you write a post if it's coming, you know, with a lot of the human aspect, or if it's a straight channel. And there's times I say things in these shows that I'm talking about in the solo shows, that it's just a flow, like it's just like a free flow. And I know that's not, you know, that's not the human dominating the expression. But so anyway, I did this, and I said, boy, I'd love to have David Icke on this show. I'd love to ask him, what do you do when you get triggered? And, you know, and you know, ask him about the I am soul, and you know, what is our potential, you know, things that I've never seen him ask. And then what, you know, like 2 weeks later, he answered an email that one of our team members had put out from 3 or 4 months before, and he's coming on. But my intention is, or my guidance has been like a bridge, particularly recently, how to bridge the disclosure, conspiracy, and starseed circles, because there are some differences there, and to bring some uniformity and some power there. So I really look at this as a great opportunity, and I feel like that the fact that it was rescheduled and put into the first month of the year is a powerful message in itself. And again, that there were other people involved, there were other synchronistic things involved, and it was just like turning that page. No different than right now, you telling me he lives up the street from me. So I feel good about where we're at, regardless of what's happening or what could happen. Like the fearlessness factor, I think, has expanded in a way that I've never seen before in terms of the community. There has been fear, there has been projection, there has been polarization, and infighting, let's just say, and disagreements. And I got to be right, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm seeing more and more people say, you know what? I am a soul, and you can't hurt me, you know, and then that's very promising to me.
Well, you're certainly doing some fantastic work, aren't you? I mean, just the fact that you can have all sorts of people on here chatting from all different, you know, backgrounds spiritually, that's just giving everybody a chance to see what is out there that they may not have had access to, such as the pastor that I told you about, that was working in an evangelist church.
Yeah.
You know, now he wanted to contact me because his problem is he's got his family. He said he's, you know, feeling.
Yeah, feeling like feeling like all of us felt.
I'm actually, you know, from another planet, sort of thing. He's got, and he said that they is demonic.
Well, of course, yeah, and that's what the first thing I'm going to say to him, to David Icke, when he comes on, is I want him to understand something, but I also want to find out if he's ever experienced it before, and that is letting him know that, hey, everyone that's watching this, for the most part, has the same journey you do. That we got a download. We basically walked away from social norms. We were considered crazy. Uh, I mean, we took the same path. It may not have the publicity that yours has, but we have followed. And I want to let him know that I don't think he's ever run into a community like that, to be honest with you. And I could be wrong. But
Right.
and the other thing you bring up about the pastor too, like I can think of two people right now. One of them and I just wrote her name down because you reminded me of it. But a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I was doing a show, and I think it was with David Manning out of UK, who's phenomenal. And this person said, I just got out of the hospital. I had COVID. And they talked about it in the comments, how they handled everything internally. And it was very moving. So I commented to her afterwards, and they agreed to that they would come on. And I don't do a real good job of following up, but I will do that today. And then the other one was somebody who, um, it was somebody who, well, a friend of this person sent me a picture of Sasquatch at the end of their driveway, and it's very clear. And my friend told me, hey, this person is very shy and doesn't want to be seen, but has all the ability in the world, and I can just feel the energy about that. Oh my God, this is going to go somewhere. So these types of things, you know, like you're talking about, that are on this platform and other platforms where they have a wide variety of experiences and stories that are all very relevant. In fact, they're necessary in order for people to absorb code that they don't have activated within themselves. So, yeah, this is a very good show, and we have to start another one in 12 minutes. But while I'm saying this with you here, and we have this connection, this vortex of all these people, and with the downloads I've been getting, especially this morning, is
I
your
was going to
ask it?
ask you,
Yeah.
how have you felt those this last 6 weeks? Have you had pain or just tiredness?
I've had a lot of downloads. Um, I can't really say. I have had 2 or 3 episodes that went for a few hours where there was a lot of sweating. There was
Mm,
I get a lot of I get cold, I get hot. That's just normal now. But some purging. Um, but I haven't had a lot of the emotional stuff, and that I've noticed with some people. But whatever's been going on these last few weeks, I see a lot more clarity in people. They're not identifying or over identifying with how they were 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. They're seeing it as a process, and they're starting to level off, and I think that's a great sign too. But yeah, I think I've been a lot of that stuff I think I did early on.
See,
Along
because
with,
you're an enlightened person who has an emotional, intelligent response to it. But could you imagine being an 8-year-old
no,
child or a 98-year-old
no,
person with Alzheimer's?
no, no, no.
So this is something that I've been trying to work on, and one of
Yeah,
the reasons I think that I'm putting my message out is that somebody who reads my work maybe take the perspective and understand and have that compassion.
yeah,
Maybe someone who works with children or old people, or who's looking after their elderly relatives, or because it's okay for us, because we can cope with it, because we can understand it. And all that you're talking about, the hot and cold thing, is all the symptoms of the ascension
yeah,
changes are exactly the same as all the energy illnesses,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's all your nervous system.
yeah. I absolutely totally agree with you.
But
I
can you
wanted to,
imagine what it's like being a 16-year-old girl that's got anxiety, and then having that ramped up out of nowhere and things like that? So
yeah, and then you have the challenge of, do I educate through verbalization and instruction, or do I affect them by my frequency and continue to bring myself into further alignment. Um, I wanted to before we get out of here, we went kind of fast, but I wanted to just talk about your presence on the web real quick. But before that, I wanted to just ask everybody if they would just kind of join me in this moment And, I was told this morning, ask, we're here, ask. This has actually been going on for a couple of days. You ask as an equal, as you and all of us are equals with these guides and with these teams. But I'm asking that we can expand this platform so that we reach more people, so that these codes are made available to more and more people through the diversity of what we offer on the platform. And in love and light, and love and light, and love and light. And thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you before we get out of here, if there's anything that we can do to support you. How do people get in contact with you if you want them to get in contact with you? Where can they find you? And is there anything that you offer online, courses, videos, blogs? I know you have, and sessions or anything that you could just give us that information, and that way people can find you if that's the path you want to take.
So obviously I've explained my situation, and I'm not in the I'm not a professional business, if you like.
Yes.
I'm just me.
Yes.
But if people find me, I mean, so many people have found me just lately. I keep having to get rid of friends on Facebook because I can't keep, the amount I've got on there. I'm going to say that the universe will send people who need to see my work. But if you want to show somebody my work, it's mostly on Facebook,
Okay.
Kirsty Elizabeth. There is Instagram too, but I'm not going to step out into that world of big ego and teaching everybody. I've taught all those sorts of things before, but I'm not going to at this point. I'm going gently with the flow because there's so much going on.
Well, I think that just because of by virtue of your approach, I think you're gonna. Yeah. Well, you know what comes, right? And,
yeah.
And so I really enjoy talking with you, and I'm really honored to have this discussion and to have this initial collaboration. And I would certainly like to do this more with you, if you're open to it. And if there's anything we can do to support you, just let us know. And if you ever want to collaborate, let us know.
I was going to say the best thing you've done to support me while I was unwell was to watch you guys and know that there's other people out there. Just hold that in your mind, that it's not just about breaking down barriers and pushing. You're actually offering a service as light workers. Your service is to reach people who are struggling, and most of the world is struggling. Most of the world is suffering and finding it hard. Yeah. It's only a few people that are sort of able to understand it and try and intellectualize it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that too. I received a beautiful message from one of our community last night. She sends a message like once a week with a small contribution that's always very appreciated. And anyway, she said the same thing, and it was about the 5th or 6th time somebody had said something. It was late last night, and I almost thought to say something to Morgan, like, this same message has come through, which is thank you. I wouldn't basically have my sanity if it wasn't for being able to know that other people are out there like me, which I found through your show. So that's more validation. It's been a very validating hour and a half.
Yeah.
We're going to start the next show about 5 minutes late, so I can.
So sorry.
No. It's a good thing. It's a high class problem, right? High class problem is I just need to go take a few breaths and drink some water and jump back on the horse. But yeah, we're going to have a beautiful couple on next. Hank Verharen, who's been on here many, many times and who always talks about his partner. And she's coming on with him today, so that'll be nice. I look forward to seeing you again, Kirsty. Thank you so much for your service to humanity and for being brave and beautiful. And I just wish you the best. All blessings to you and your family.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Take care.